So we're going to transition here to our first panel, which is the perspective of our partners. So Hillary just introduced the amazing folks who have made this conference possible, and we're going to bring them up to speak a little bit about why are we talking about this now? Why are we here today? So first, I'd like to introduce Dan Kelting. He is the president of Paul Smith's College, where he leads efforts to advance academic excellence, sustainability, and community engagement. With over 2 decades in service at the college in several key leadership roles, and one of our former professors as well. Very
proud of you.
Oh, thank you. He's also the former executive director of the Adirondack Watershed Institute. They've got a table out there all week with us for Water Week, so check that out. And of course, he is deeply committed to the college and fostering student success there. So welcome, Dan. We appreciate you and your remarks.
I have to say right off the bat, you're a tough act to follow. You're amazing. And Hillary, too, a very tough act to follow. So good afternoon, everyone. As president of Paul Smith College, it's really an honor to participate in this conversation about wildfire in the Adirondacks. My thanks to the Wild Center, my thanks to the Adirondack Explorer, and my thanks to the Adirondack chapter of the Nature Conservancy for co-hosting this important event. Somewhat ironically, in addition to being president of a college, I'm also a forester. So that actually gives me a little bit of credibility in the space that it didn't realize I had until I was invited to speak here. So a little bit about myself as a forester. So as a forester, I've spent many years walking through the woods of many forests, in the Adirondacks included, learning how fire has shaped the very landscapes that we all love. Some forest types we know simply can't exist without fire. They're fire dependent. In my years of managing forests, I've even used fire as a tool, using controlled burns to prepare sites for new growth or to keep competing vegetation in check. So while the word wildfire often brings to mind danger, smoke, and destruction, it's worth remembering that fire is also a natural force, one that can bring renewal, balance, and life to our forests. Having said all this, and this will tie in with what Hillary said, we've all been breathing the smoke from the fires in Canada for several days this summer. And we've all seen the dramatic footage from the West in California. So wildfire is not a distant problem. Fire, once thought of as somewhere else, it's a Western thing, it's a Northern Canada thing, is a concern right here in the Adirondacks. It might surprise some that this region has a history of major wildfires. And I know there's going to be a longer talk about this history in a little bit, but we do know that in 1903 and again in 1908, hundreds of thousands of acres of our forests burned. These fires were fueled by heavy logging debris, which were sparked by locomotives, by fires for mining furnaces, and also by just simple human carelessness. Thankfully, the conditions today are quite a bit different. And climate models suggest that our region is probably going to be wetter, not drier. Large-scale western fires are unlikely to occur here, though I do wonder how invasive forest pests like emerald ash borer, hemlock woolly delgid, and more people may affect that sensitivity of our region to future fires. Regardless, fires still happen. And most of them start the same way they did a century ago, by us. Escaped campfires, out-of-control brush fires, and other human error. That means education, law enforcement, and basic prevention, the work of Smokey Bear, remain our most powerful tools to reduce the risk of wildfire here in the Adirondacks. At Paul Smith College, we take that responsibility very seriously. We prepare the next generation of natural resource professionals. Since 1946, our forestry program has trained students in fire ecology, prescribed fire and wildland firefighting, and many New York State DEC forest rangers and environmental conservation officers are Paul Smith College graduates. We conduct research and advanced understanding. Our faculty, including Dr. Justin Waskowitz, who's going to be speaking later, study fire-dependent ecosystems and post-fire forest recovery. We share our knowledge with the community, Conferences like this create dialogue we need among scientists, landowners, managers, and policymakers. And we manage our own 14,000 acres responsibly. A small fire on our lands about 15 years ago reminded us at Paul Smith's that we too are stewards and stakeholders around fire. As we face a future where fire is a natural but sometimes dangerous neighbor, the Adirondacks will rely on well-trained professionals, engaged communities, and collaborations like the one we begin here today. I'm proud that Paul Smith College is part of this work, and I look forward to the ideas and partnerships that will emerge from this conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan, for your remarks. I'd like to welcome next Tracy Ormsbee. She is our publisher of the Adirondack Explorer. That's probably a household name many of you recognize. The Adirondack Explorer is a premier paper sharing all the stories of our local area, bringing essential news to all of our communities here. And I welcome Tracy.
Thank you so much, Nicole, and thank you to the Wild Center for hosting this important conversation, and thanks to all the partners for what you're going to bring to the conversation today. The Adirondack Explorer is dedicated to covering the Adirondack Park, its conservation needs, community concerns, and recreational opportunities. We're excited to be here today for an opportunity to deepen public understanding of how climate change and forest management intersect in the Adirondacks. As journalists, we believe it's essential to connect science, policy, and community voices and to foster informed conversation about how this uniquely wild region can prepare for a hotter, more unpredictable future. We've reported extensively on the impacts of a warming climate in the region, and in 2023 added a full-time climate reporter to deepen our commitment to this coverage. And that reporter is Mike Lynch, who is part of our conversation today. He'll lead a panel discussion later this afternoon. Some of the climate-related challenges we've documented include invasive species spreading more easily to our lakes and forests, milder winters, which are taking a toll on our winter sports, long a driver of the park's recreation economy, and resulting in increased snowmaking costs and pressure on towns and villages to replace snow-dependent activities. And in 2023, smoke from distant wildfires drifting into the Adirondacks raised the question for us that we're having here today: could our own forests burn? We wrote about that in 2023, and there are a few copies of this out there. This was our 25th anniversary edition, so it was hard to come up with those today. In our reporting, fire experts told us it's unlikely right now that Adirondack hardwood forests will burn, but those trees, like birds and wildlife, may be replaced by others as the climate changes. NOAA projections show the Northeast could see a temperature increase of 4.5 to 10 degrees by 2080. But even with that warming, it would take a prolonged drought to create conditions ripe for large-scale wildfires. What they emphasized instead was the importance of good forest management, which includes carefully planned tree cutting and other interventions to maintain forest health and reduce risk. So we're really interested to see where this conversation goes today. I thank you again for including the Adirondack Explorer.
Thank you so much, Tracy, and thank you to the Adirondack Explorer staff for being here today. I'm going to turn it over to our lead lady. We have Stephanie Ratcliffe here today, who is the executive director at the Wild Center. She has been here from the ground up and welcomes all of you to join us today. Stephanie, please come to the podium.
So it's hard to believe that next year the Wild Center would be 20 years old. And I was on the startup team in those early years, and when we opened, our vision for this theater was to have lectures, watch the movies, the occasional performance, and we've done all that and we continue to do all of that. But as soon as we opened in 2006, we realized we really needed to address climate change. And so even in those early years, so long ago, We started with a national leadership conference of thought leaders that led to an Adirondack conference, which then led to the Youth Climate Summit, of which we've now had 17. Jen, wherever you're 17. Woo! And many other convenings that often addressed climate change. So to me, this has become the most important room in the building. It is so important that you're here and that we're here so that we can bring scientists together, we can have conversations together, you can ask your questions, and we want to be that bridge. So let's give this room a hand. So I was naive, and I continue to be naive, even in those early days. We've heard the warmer, wetter, but, I continue to be naive about how quickly the flooding, the survival of the ticks, the list goes on and on about these impacts of climate change and how quickly it's happening. So again, we want to be the bridge between what we're learning about the science and then what we can do together as a community to work together to find solutions. So as Hillary said, you have a chance to listen to different perspectives today, ask your own questions, record your questions about flooding for next year, and the Wild Center will continue to be this bridge. So thank you, and let's get started.